So hi everybody, I'm Joan Berman. I'm one of the co-chairs of the mentoring committee for the WLC. Amy Reese over there, who's going to speak later, is a co-chair with me, as is Sharon Curran, who couldn't be here today because her daughter is graduating as we speak. So a great reason. I want to thank everybody for coming, and we're going to have this wonderful panel, and then there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers and some more socializing and food afterwards. So I want to welcome everyone, mentors, mentees, family, Brown people, everyone for coming. This is one of my absolute favorite events at Brown ever, which is the finishing up of the mentoring program for this year and the panel with our wonderful former mentees. The WLP has been here for quite a while, and in the past 9 years, our mentoring program has had more than 1,200 students and alumni participate, which is really very exciting and a huge number, and we grow more and more every year. And as a matter of fact, we were just discussing our growth this morning and how exciting it is to watch people move on and our former mentees become mentors themselves. And the program is in fact made possible because of the wonderful energies of our alumni and the dedication of the students to learn from them and to teach them as well and to be a partnering team. So we've had a series of on-campus and off-campus events that have been very exciting, addressing various aspects of engagement and of graduation, and a lot of gatherings in New York and Boston, welcoming people and keeping in touch so that we can all remember what everyone is doing and provide great networking opportunities and contacts back to this fabulous institution. This afternoon we are delighted to welcome back the recent grads and also former mentees who've traveled from Boston, New York, and DC to share with us their experience of transformation of life after Brown and lessons learned along the way. Our moderator, right over here, Kate DeOssie, class of '08, is the co-founder of Career Goggles with her mom, I learned, and I was hearing that they have had this wonderful dynamic once they learned how to transition into new relationships. So Career Goggles is a career strategy consultancy focused on professional branding, strategic communication, and career advancement. Kate specializes in positioning strategies, resume development, interview preparation, and networking, and works with clients ranging from recent college grads to C-level executives across industries including finance, legal, healthcare, technology, media, and nonprofit. Prior to founding Career Goggles, Kate worked at Goldman Sachs in the investment banking division, Strategic Relationship Management Group, which is responsible for interdivisional business development efforts with the firm's strategically important clients. She was active in recruiting, captained community teamworks, and was on the IMD Women's Network Steering Committee. There's a theme here, a women's strength theme here. Kate serves on the board of America Needs You New Jersey, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to increase economic mobility for ambitious, low-income, first-generation college students, that is, students who are the first in their family to go to college. Kate earned her Bachelor of Arts with honors in economics and a BA in visual arts as well from Brown University, where she was, very long list, writing fellow, business teaching assistant, and women's launchpad mentee, which is how I first met Kate. She was also a valedictorian finalist and received Brown's highest award in financial economics for her honors thesis. So please join me in welcoming Kate and everyone else.
Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much to the Brown Career. Sorry? Is that better? Not quite as tall as Joan. So thank you for having me to the Brown Career Development Center and to the Women's Leadership Council. Any better? Should I stand on this? It's my first time. I think I speak for many of us when I say that there is no place I would rather be on a gorgeous day in May than back here at Brown and with all of you. So here we are. So for those of you who are seniors, we were all in your seats not too long ago, a little bit longer for me. But I'll go out on a limb and say that we are very envious of the position that you're in right now, that you have so much excitement that lies ahead of you. Brown is amazing. I hope that you have found that, as I did, that it is a really supportive and nurturing environment that teaches you how to learn and experiment and grow. And I often compare it to learning how to walk while still in the womb. But graduation can feel a bit like you're being tossed into the ocean. So you learn to walk, but now you have to learn to swim. And it's sort of this uncharted territory, and you're swimming towards an island in the future that represents, your sort of your next exciting adventure. And there's limited visibility, and sometimes the island looks like a sparkling white sand beach, and sometimes it looks like Alcatraz. I think we can all definitely appreciate that the transition, even though it comes with feelings of excitement and joy, can also have sometimes conflicting emotions of confusion, all the way to severe anxiety, and that regardless of whether you're going to be pursuing a professional career or a graduate degree, or some other adventure, that this transition comes with a lot of questions. And so that is why we're here today, so that we can address some of those big looming questions. This is a panel of amazing, very impressive, inspiring young women who are going to share with us their tales of how they made it from Brown to wherever they are today. And we're going to hear some pearls of wisdom and maybe even some comedies of errors, all with the goal in mind that you don't actually feel like you're being tossed into the ocean, but that you feel like you have this, which you do, very supportive community that's helping you build a land bridge to that island. So there's a lot of support here from Brown, from the WLP, and hopefully we'll have some fun in the conversation as well. So with that, I would love for each of the panelists to introduce herself briefly. You have bios, but we can get a sort of more anecdotal account of how you got to where you are today. And then we'll go into a couple of prepared questions, which will allow them to share more of their wisdom. And then we'll finish up with some open time for Q&A for anything that you feel is outstanding. So would you like to start, Julia?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Julia, and I graduated last year from Brown with a degree in biology. And I'm originally from the Bay Area, and now I live in Boston. So my mom still will call me on the phone and say, "When are you coming back to California?" But no, I'm in Boston for now. I work at a biotech company, a biotech startup that's out in the kind of industrial area of Boston. Doing bioengineering work, which is an interest of mine that I had at Brown, and I was on a team at Brown called iGEM. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with it. That is a team that you do a bioengineering-based project and then go to a competition at MIT. So that was a big activity I was involved in at Brown. I was also editor of Paper and Pixel, Brown's photography magazine. So I have that creative side of me that it can sometimes be hard to find working in intense science, but I can talk to you guys about how if you feel you're going into one field and you're leaving a part of you behind, there is a way to kind of rescue that and to kind of live all of your interests.
All right, so hi everyone, my name is Kiara. I graduated from Brown in 2014 in biology as well. I am originally from Albania, so I've gone through all the international student struggles. If there's any internationals in the audience, feel free to ask questions because I know all the secrets. And right now I work at a pharmaceutical company called AstraZeneca, and I'm doing a rotational program that allows me to try 3 different departments in the span of 2 years, which I decided to do while I decide what I want to do next, which is most probably a PhD. So.
Awesome. Hi everyone, my name is Rolanda. I graduated from Brown in the spring of 2012 with a degree in political science, focused in American politics, and I left Brown really full from my experience and decided that I was going to take my time in figuring out what I wanted to do and I decided I was going to let my heart lead me to a series of incredible opportunities. I've worked in the legal field, I've gotten to work for a finance company, but I think the number one thing that's threaded all of my professional experiences together is always wanting to connect people to opportunities that make them feel valued and make them come alive. And I found that through recruiting. I found that through relationship building. I found that through strategic partnerships. And so now I find myself in Washington, D.C., working for a higher ed policy and youth advocacy organization, working on things surrounding sexual assault prevention on college campuses and college affordability and diversity and inclusion issues. And I'd be happy to talk to you all about how I was hopelessly wandering.
I'm Chantel. I also graduated in the spring of 2012. I graduated with a degree in theater arts and performance studies. I did a lot of theater at Brown. I found my way into producing and directing and thought that's what I wanted to do full time. So after I graduated, I did a lot of freelancing here in Providence locally. Okay, hello. Hi, can you hear me more? And I did a lot of freelancing here in Providence locally, at Brown, with Rights and Reason, downtown, at AS220, and at Trinity Rep. And then I got a fellowship to go to McCarter Theater Center in Princeton and work there for a year. And after that, I decided I didn't want to do theater full time anymore. I was good. It's really hard to make your passion your day job when you have to serve someone else's art and needs. So I found that I wanted to keep my passion to myself and transfer the skills that I'd learned producing and directing and working in theater administration to a field that I always had some sort of interest in, and that's advertising and branding. So now I work as an associate client executive at Co-op Brand Partners. It's a small branding agency in the financial district, and I'm happy to talk to people about transferring your skills and how to highlight that resume and transfer over industries.
Hey everyone, my name is Julia Harvey. I am originally from Lincoln, Rhode Island, so not too far from home. I got a degree in public health while I was here at Brown, and similarly to Rolanda, I decided I wanted to take my time and figure out how I wanted to live out my degree and the dreams that I had. So now I'm working actually at Brown at the School of Public Health. I love Brown so much I didn't want to leave. And I'm working jointly as a program coordinator, both for researchers at the School of Public Health and also for a nonprofit organization called the Rhode Island Public Health Institute. So I've really enjoyed taking the time to be able to look across disciplines and see how public health can be applied, both in research and in a nonprofit world. And we also partner with folks in government and in different sectors. So that's been very exciting. And looking forward, I'm actually hoping to pursue a joint degree with a law degree and a master's in public health.
Big bunch of underachievers. And Julia, I just have to say, I think you win for finding a way to stay back at Brown. So let's start the questions by putting ourselves in the shoes of those who are in the room. Senior spring. What was that like for you? Did you find yourself, juggling the pressure of the job search process with sort of other desires like having fun your senior year? Did you have to think about or work through strategically some other personal issues that you might be facing about leaving one community and joining another? How did that work for you?
Am I starting?
Whoever, you can just jump right in.
Well, I can start. There we go. It's gonna fall. Okay. So senior spring, I'd say I imagine I had a thought with myself where I said, Julia, what are your priorities? And this might not be the best answer for those of you who have different priorities, but I decided I wanted to spend time with my friends and just enjoy my last month at Brown. So I would say, especially looking at the last month, that just living every moment and being with all my friends was something that I definitely said, yes, this is what I want to do. Schoolwork, finals, they'll happen in the background. But I definitely would say just try and maximize each moment that's happening right now through graduation, because it's the best part. It's so fun. in terms of looking a little bit earlier than last month, I would say a priority for me was finding a job, and probably around the months of, I was looking, from the fall through the spring, and probably the months of February through April for me were crunch time in terms of, okay, let me put out my resume, talk to people, network, see what jobs are out there. And I was offered my job in April before I graduated, and it was in a field that I was interested in and at a company I wanted to work for, so I took it. So that became less of a priority for me, but I would definitely say capitalize on each moment right now, because they're memories you'll want to have forever.
And I would kind of give the same advice that Julia did. At senior spring can be really stressful. There's a lot of things going on. There's, senior theses and job applications and grad school applications, and you also want to socialize and hang out with your friends, and it seems like you can do that. But Brown is one of those places that really teaches you how to multitask and learn how to prioritize things, because you're always doing so many different things, and actually after you leave, it's definitely going to make that easier. But while at Brown, make sure you prioritize or schedule fun and socializing. And I mean, leaving the library for half an hour, going to the GCB for a beer, and then go back to the library. But make time for that. And of course, there's stress and there's pressure. International students also only have 90 days after graduation to find a job. If not, they get deported. So there's definitely a pressure about finding a job as soon as possible. And I remember that I was stressed out, and that was my priority for the first couple of months of senior spring. But just try to always make sure that you hang out with your friends, because in the end you will remember that, and most of the time things will work out. So definitely put that in your schedule next time.
You want to go? Do you want me to go? So senior spring was interesting for me. I was student body president at the time, and that job didn't end until commencement. So I took that really seriously, but I also loved it. I loved working on behalf of Brown. I loved working with President Simmons at the time. And I decided that I wanted to be fully there and I wanted to be fully present. So I made the active decision to stop looking for a job around February. I participated in fall recruiting. I was like, oh, maybe I want to do consulting because I don't know what I want to do. And then I decided that wasn't really my jam. And my WLP mentor, I remember breaking out in hives during my Bain interview because I was like, I can't do this. I got the case study book and I know how to do this, but I don't think I can do this. I don't think this is for me. And so there were a lot of come to Jesus moments where she's literally just saying to me, for right now, maybe you just need to follow your bliss. And maybe your bliss is being invested in the campus communities that you've been cultivating over the last 4 years and finishing school strong. And that's what I did. So I think I made a conscientious decision to an extreme, given my counterparts on the stage, to kind of be invested here and be present here. And I thought that those, and I still feel like those things still built my resume, right? I still could call upon incredible people to write me references and recommendations when I could really invest in looking, because for me, I needed to finish school and I needed to finish my commitment to student government. And we were also placing a new president at the time. There were just a lot of things going on for me personally there. And so I wanted to be present there, and I don't regret that decision, but what that ended up looking like for me was after graduation, I went to China, and then I came back, and my mother's probably laughing at me because it was a very short trip, and then I decided to be on the Brown Alumni Job Board and be in Brunette and keep speaking to all of these people that I had been cultivating these relationships with, and a lot of these women are in the room, and just talk to them about what I was interested in so that I could actually intentionally look for a job and not feel scrambled. And so that's what I did. And I had fun.
I also really hit the grindstone and was hustling in a different direction. I took 5 classes. Yeah. You know, I had to graduate on time. And it's real. And I was writing a solo show for one of the classes. Monday, which is fun, takes up a lot of your time. And I was also like crafting a theater piece for another one, and had to take one of my final requirements for theater. So it was a very, very busy, hectic, stressful time, and at the same time I'm trying to apply for like all these theater fellowships that want everything March 1st, and it's like, why? That's not even spring break. So I was very frustrated. I didn't get any of the fellowships, which was also very frustrating, but since getting it later ended up being a better thing for me. I was better prepared to enter the workplace at that time. Knew more of what I wanted out of one of those fellowships. I was only doing it at that time just because it looked like the next step that I should do. And I ended up being in Providence for the summer. I had spent all of my previous summers in Providence anyway. I had gotten an offer to RA for undergrads because I had done RAing like the 2 summers before. So I did that. And I was like, okay, cool, I know what my summer looks like. And then while I was here over the summer, I figured I was going to be involved with one of the theater productions that was in the fall anyway, and they offered me money to stage manage it. So it ended up working out, which normally for us Brown grads, it ends up working out, but senior spring was very, very stressful. And I was on that brunette, and I was on that job board, and I was like, yo, like, hey, what's up? What do I want to do? And I was not talking to people trying to narrow down my focus. I was just applying to everything. Don't do that. I mean, sometimes it works, but no, I was like applying for things that I should not have been applying for. I was not qualified, and I would not have been happy. So I was very frantic, and I didn't know what I was doing. And so if you're feeling like that, it's okay, and it will pass, and commencement will give you all of the love that you need to move out of the gates. It's a very loving occasion and ceremony, and you will love it. So
and a turn up.
Yes, the turn up is real. But yeah, senior spring was up and down, and I had some serious deaths in the family, and so everything was just a mess. But the Brown community will always be here for you, whether you are a student or not. So there were times when I leaned on people. There were times where I just went to my room in hope, and I was just I don't want to talk to anybody, but I could always go to the blue room and run into someone and chill and be with them and be present. So you may be all over the place, you may not be, but just take the time when you need it for yourself. Try and calm down and focus on what you want, but you'll be fine regardless.
I think I had 2 things that really stood out for me in terms of my senior spring, and that was because I actually ended up accepting a job in November. So that was great in that the pressure was off, but as you know, my job was at Brown, which meant that I was here. So it kind of meant that my senior spring, I was getting acquainted with my job very quickly while also being a full-time student. And that was a very interesting experience. It was very interesting to start to see this is what it's going to be like. This is what I'm going to do day to day, and trying to figure out how to balance that. And then the other thing that I think, kind of the more poignant thing, is that I was recognizing my community is going to be in Providence next year. And instead of a lot of people were kind of dealing with, okay, I'm going to move away. I have to find a new community. For me, my community was leaving me. All of my friends were going off into other places, and I was going to be in Providence. And so I think that what was really important for me in that time, and I think that this is important for anyone when they find a new place, is really figuring out, how am I going to establish myself here? I had to figure out, a lot of us at Brown will do things in Providence, but there's so much student life on campus that sometimes we as students don't always reach out and see what Providence has to offer. And I've tried to make a conscientious decision my senior spring to do that, and to start to kind of figure out where is my place in the Providence community, even beyond Brown. So I'd get, I was going down and seeing more shows downtown and, meeting friends off campus and trying to really immerse myself in the Providence culture. And that's something that's really paid off. I love living in Providence as a young professional. It's a very different experience, as you would know as well. I mean, it's very different than being a student here, and incredibly rewarding. So for people who are staying in Providence, there's a lot that Providence has to offer.
Absolutely, and no doubt other communities as well. And that was actually a great point to segue into our next prompt, which is that leaving this community, which has been so nourishing and rewarding in a lot of ways, poses a bit of a problem in that you are leaving in many cases, in some cases not, or people are leaving you. And whether it be the relationships that you have developed with professors or mentors, friends certainly, as well as whatever your family situations might be or what other polls might be for the new community that you're looking to join. How did you balance the potentially competing aspects of that of that transition? Did you find that there were struggles or that you had to work through, or was it very simple and you kind of went home? Did all of your friends? Many of my friends went to New York. I was very lucky, but I had many friends who their circles would really scatter throughout the world, and that's really difficult. Technology makes it easier in many cases, but how did you balance some of that flow?
Can I jump in? So I think the thing that I was dealing with most my senior spring, me and my partner of 3 years had met together at Brown. We'd been together at Brown, and then we're trying to figure out where are we going to be as two people after Brown. And I think that in terms of balancing both my professional aspirations as well as my personal goals, it took a lot of work to negotiate. So, I knew that I had this job here. I said I accepted in November. My partner, on the other hand, had an offer here in Providence and also had an offer in Seattle. And that took a lot of just hard conversations, And what we decided in the end was the offer in Seattle was just better for her. It was the opportunity that she needed to take. And I think that for me, it was just very much dealing with the hard issues and having to deal with them all at the same time. Like you were said, balancing the professional and the personal. And in the end, I think it was the right decision. We're still together. But I think that the reason that we're still together is because we had to figure out what is going to be right for each of us at this time. So it's hard to do, but you can navigate all of that. It's definitely possible.
I'll go. I got real lucky that one of my very close friends was living here and doing TFA in Fall River. So I got real lucky that I got to hold on to somebody from my class that knew the staying in Providence struggle, and everyone's gone into New York and it looks like their lives are fabulous and all of that. But I also then made oh yeah, they did look fabulous. I also made really good connections with the class below me during my senior year, because one, that's what you do. They're the people who have been there with you the longest. They know Brown almost as well as you do. So it wasn't too much of a struggle to do that. I also branched out and made friends through work and the various freelance projects I was doing, and downtown at Brown Trinity and all of that. So, I didn't necessarily always hang out with people on campus. I found a way to branch out into a different Providence community. But also Facebook and Snapchat are amazing. And I have 2 friends that I don't see as often as I think I do, because I always talk to them on Messenger or something. I'm speaking to them every day. And it's Tyler and Antha. And I did not, I remember I was like, when's the last time I've seen you, Tyler? And he's like, oh, we 6 months ago. I was like, what? I was like, I feel like that's not real. So, please don't be afraid. If you're not on Facebook now, I understand. I get it. You're stronger than me. But try and keep in touch with those people however you can, and just pick up where you left off. But also, things are going to change, and there are going to be some people you don't talk to anymore, and they're going to change in a way that you weren't expecting, and it doesn't really mesh with you anymore. And it's a little sad, but if you realize that they're growing into the person that they're growing into, and they need to be at that moment in time, and it's okay. Y'all don't have to be. College is a very particular time. Some people you stay friends with forever, and some people, you see them at commencement, and then some people you don't talk to anymore. And you'll be all right. Like, it's going to be okay. I promise. I promise you'll be fine. You'll find new people. But like, don't be afraid to let people go, because if you keep them around, then you may lose the memory that you had of them. You know, they may end up being someone you resent and you don't like anymore because you're not trying to let them go and be the person they need to be. So that's just a little bit of advice that I have regarding that.
I really enjoy your
I think echoing off of that, just in terms of, I think a lot of times we hear people change, but what we don't hear so much is that you're going to change. And that was something that I did not anticipate at all graduating. I was like, I know what I'm interested in. I have a job that's in that field. I'm with my boyfriend. We're gonna be together forever. And that's how I felt when I graduated. And I thought that the transition, just moving up to Boston, that would be easy. I was living with, or am living with, 2 Brown friends, who are 2 of my closest friends here. So that part was also nice and easy for me. And what I didn't anticipate was that as I transitioned to the real world and to working, that my own needs changed. And that relationships I had before also changed because of that. And so that was something I would say was kind of shocking for me, and I didn't anticipate at all. So if, you know, it could happen to you, it might not, but that's something, I don't know, it's something that might happen. Also, just with regards to friends and people moving away, what I have found is that cold calling is the best way to get in touch with people. Usually you think like, okay, I have to plan with so-and-so, like we're gonna talk next Tuesday at 8, and then everyone's always late, and then it turns into 9 and 10, and then you call and it's like, oh, I'm too tired, I have to work tomorrow and get up at 6, and then you just don't end up talking to your friend. But I would say if you wanna call someone who's far away, if you wanna talk to them, I'd say best way to do it, don't like plan Skype, don't plan a phone call, don't plan anything, just call them. Yeah. And they'll probably, the first reaction they'll get is like, oh my God, something's terribly wrong with Julia. She's probably in the emergency room. I have to talk to her immediately. And then they pick up the phone and you're like, oh yeah, I just want to call and say hi. And so that is the best way to get in touch with people from my experience.
And just similarly to what Julia said, I was very lucky because I moved to Boston, and a lot of my really close friends, well, 5 out of the 6 closest friends I had at Brown moved to Boston. So that made it really easy and smooth in terms of social life, because I already had a group of people to lean on and to, start off, even though I was in a new city. And then it's true, you get to meet a lot of people at work. I managed because the program I'm part of is it's a bunch of recent graduates. It's people who have very similar interests to me, so we end up getting along really well. And yeah, it's true that you will change, other people will change, people's priorities will change. Like, I have friends who got married, so of course no one will have the same time that we had for each other when we were at Brown, and that's fine. I think it's just being able to acknowledge that, give yourself that space to, move away if you need to, if you need that time, take that time, and also give your friends that space too, because they won't have time to see you every day for coffee or dinner at the Ratty. Like, it's just not gonna happen. And I think that actually that's the best way to keep in touch with them, if you stop demanding as much from your friends, because you can still end up meeting up on the weekends, and that's what I usually do. And we have, wine and cheese nights at my place, and it's you always get to reminisce about your times at Brown. It's just that it can't be like that every day like it was here. And it's true that cold calling is good, but I would still suggest that Skype is great, and it is fairly easy to keep in touch nowadays with your friends, even the ones that live abroad. I actually went to an international high school, so I have a lot of friends all thrown around the world, and I've kind of practiced throughout the years, and the people that you care about, you'll keep in touch with, and you'll make sure you see them. My best friend is Iranian, but she was born and raised in Norway, so we're in 2 different continents, but we've seen each other every year since I graduated high school. So, you know, for the people you care about, you'll always make sure you have them, you keep having them in your life.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have anything to add to the personal anecdotes that were shared because I completely agree. I will say this, though. For me, when I graduated, I went home, and it was really easy to kind of like reintegrate myself into my family structure and kind of not lose myself, but kind of forget about the person that I was becoming at Brown. And for me, that was just a personal struggle to like affirm my adult self or who I was becoming at the time, but still be Vernell and Reggie's daughter, right? But still be the youngest of 5. And so I had to figure that out. And I think if you do go home, if that's the decision that you make, it might be something that you deal with if you, in whatever family dynamic you come from. But for me, the transition of a lot of the times that I spent a lot of time with administrators. I spent a lot of time with people who work at Brown. And I wanted, when I would talk to them, I didn't always want to be asking them for something. I didn't always want to be asking them for a recommendation or asking them for something that I needed. I wanted to also know how they were doing. And I would get scared and I would get shy about the amount of time that had passed since I was able to be here and like really ask them those things and check on them. And I found for me, like with time, this is a community that is fairly warm and inviting, and it really is just like you left. Like today, I was on the main green and I passed about 3 people, and they all remembered me by face and name, and it's just not something you can find everywhere. And so I would say, like, even if you want to send an old professor like a funny link, I think you should do it, because I think it matters to creating relationships that are sustainable and that aren't one way, that really are a revolving door, but also that are more personal. And I think that the Brown community in particular lends itself to doing that successfulully. And sometimes I was really shy about that, but it was something I had to grow out of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I wanted to add something.
Sure.
Sorry. And about professors, I felt at Brown, I always felt like I was wasting their time.
Of course, because they're so like
they're
good
busy
at
and
what
they're-
they do.
Exactly.
It's intimidating sometimes.
But then it gets actually much easier once you move out and you start putting things into perspective. You're like, all right, like I haven't seen this professor in 6 months. I'm sure he can sit down with me for a cup of coffee. And usually people do. You come back to Providence, it's like, hey, professor, like I'm here for the afternoon. Do you want to catch up and grab a cup of coffee? And you can do that. And that's really nice. And it's a really, it's a nice feeling to have that you're not, exactly what Kate said, you're not thrown in the sea and, you know, you won't have, these people have your back and they will for as long as they're here. And as for mentors, I have, my mentor is actually amazing, and I've kept in touch with her, and she also lives 10 minutes away from my work, so I've seen her quite a few times. So it is possible and really nice to have your WLP mentor to back you up as well.
Absolutely.
Especially if you move in the same city.
I'm several years older than you, and I still keep in touch with my mentor also, who is, you know, one of the greatest people I think I've ever met. And so, you know, we're definitely fortunate to be part of this community of, you know, women and also Brown University. And you know, the personal nuggets are really important. Because the truth, I've never loved the phrase work-life balance, because the truth is that your personal life really is an important influence on what you ultimately do for work, and your work will be an important influence on your personal life. So with that in mind, we talked a bit about the life aspect. To go to the work aspect for a second, how did you decide what you wanted to do with your life after Brown? I was speaking with some of the panelists earlier, and we were saying that one of the really challenging things coming out of Brown is, you know, we're all, I think it's fair to say, high achieving, and we're probably good at a number of different things, and we chose a major that, you know, sparked our interest, or several for whatever reason. But then translating that into what you really want to do with your life, and whether that next step even has to be what you do with your life, or is it just sort of, you know, obviously, you know, a step on a zigzag path. Did you explore fields that you were potentially interested in? How did you navigate the sort of difference between industry versus function? Did your mentor help you through, you know, thinking that through with conversations? Any wisdom that you received along the way that helped you make that decision? And then did you feel in retrospect that it was a good sort of first step?
I'll go. So, I studied theater. That's a really easy trajectory to go into theater. And I knew I didn't want to be an actor who auditioned all the time and does the like rat race of theater, but I didn't know exactly how to get into what I wanted to do. The end goal is to have a theater, is to put on work in a space that I own that speaks to an audience I want to cater to. Some people our age are kind of doing that off the bat, but that's not, I didn't want to do it sort of haphazardly, trying to find spaces around Manhattan and struggling and all of that. I wanted to learn, how does a theater sustain itself? So how does one like keep moving year after year, stay on budget? Like, what does a budget for a theater look like? All of that. I wanted to know the ins and outs of it. So I tried to apply to a bunch of fellowships at a regional theater, at really great ones. I think all of them had won Tonys and all of that. And I didn't get any of them. That's okay. So I freelanced around here because opportunities just kept popping up. My mentors at Brown were really, really helpful in getting me, placed here, placed there. I worked at Trinity downtown for a little bit, and I got to learn from the sales side what sells. That was a very interesting aspect. Like, what sells to this particular community, and who are the audiences of theater across the nation, especially regional theaters. And so that was something I learned. And then I applied for fellowships again the next year and got to a really great fellowship at McCarter Theater that I gained through Brown connections, because the associate artistic director there is a Brown grad and worked with the same supervisor I worked with here and all of that. So, and then I really learned the ins and outs. And my question was answered day 3. I was like, how do we create sustainable theater? And he says, we can't, because that's not real. And I was like, what, why? And he was like, because there's no way to make theater more efficient. It's like, making cars. There's always a way to build it better. You go from each person custom making a car to an assembly line to making, this bit merge with this bit so it's cheaper. You have to pay human beings in theater, and so the cost of living will always rise. So no matter how late down the line you get, a 20-person production and a 1-person production will end up costing the same. And I was like, what? What's that? How am I supposed to deal with this? So, I learned a lot about how to produce theater instead. I learned that, and that was enough. And I learned about, office culture, cultivating relationships, managing expectations, would eventually feed into what I do now, which is client management. I got into Mad Men Thanksgiving break senior year because I got the flu, and I was just sitting in bed watching Netflix all day. And it was amazing, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to get into that. And I very barely explored it while I was here. I was like, oh, what are theater advertising agencies? And I was very theater minded. And something that my WLP mentor told me was don't be afraid to fall into something else if it comes along. She was you're very focused on theater right now, and that's great that you're very passionate about it, but something else may come your way. So try to keep an open mind about it. And I'm really happy she said that. It was a seed. It did not grow until many years later, but it did. And so when I sort of discovered that my skills could translate, that was when I started to look elsewhere. So it was a very interesting road to get to where I am now, but I really like the work I'm doing. I'm able to have a better work-life balance than working in theater, even though, we hate that phrase. And I can put up art of my own, but I can also do what I'm really great at and serve a different need in a different field that I'm passionate about in a different way. So yeah.
So we, as always, with such interesting, riveting conversations, are coming up against old man the clock. And so I think we are going to save some of your additional pearls of wisdom for the Q&A session, which will undoubtedly solicit them. So we have just a few minutes. Does anybody have Any burning questions? I heard someone say a long time ago, and it really resonated with me, that you have to break down in order to break through. And I think that, breaking down some of these big questions so that you hopefully will help you sort of break through them. Anything that you feel you could break through in addition to what we have addressed so far? Yeah.
Well, I love hearing the young enthusiasm and the figure out what you want to do and take your time. But I'm wondering about parental expectations and other family member expectations. You're graduating from Brown, they've just paid however much, and you're telling them, I'm going to take time to figure out myself, and how you manage that, right? Because as a parent of I can see a reaction from a different way. And I think it's important, but I'm interested in how you manage that. Besides going to China for 24 hours.
I mean, she told you then. Okay. So yeah, shots fired. I understand. I always took it really seriously that my parents were paying for me to go to Brown, and so I always had at least 3 jobs, and I saved. Practically. I knew that I was going to stop looking for work in February, but I had a phone bill and I needed to be responsible and an adult. So I saved, and I knew I was going home, and I wouldn't be able to contribute to that household in the way that I would want to until I found a job. So I made sure that I had something there to make that more bearable, and so that I wouldn't be a freeloader. And I felt really strongly about that. I don't think my parents were ever standing over me. I think they were incredibly proud of me, and I think they knew that I would always land where I was supposed to land, but I knew that I really wanted to be an adult about making the decision to wait, and then understanding that if it took time, I needed to handle my business as a young woman. So that's what I did. I had a job and I saved, and I was still able to meet my obligations. So the awesome thing about college affordability and loans is that they do come due. So I had a job working by the time my loan payments would become due, and since I was financially responsible for them, I made that contractual obligation. So I knew that I had to have a job by that point, and I think I allowed myself enough space to figure it out in quotation marks, but I wasn't wandering for too long. So I took a job that allowed me to meet those obligations, but also contribute to my household, again, as I said, because that was important to me. And I made sure in every career move that I made since then that there was savings in my account for those buffer periods. For me to be bold enough to say I wanted time, I also knew that I had to write a check that I could cash. Figuratively and emotionally, and so I did. But it was tough, kind of thinking about coming out of school, knowing that my parent, I was fortunate enough to have really incredible and supportive environments, but I had to make a way to pay for myself in this world because my parents had contributed more than I was willing to, and I didn't want them to keep paying for my lifestyle. I wanted to figure out how to do that myself. And so those are hard conversations to have with yourself, but I think it has a lot to do with self-reflection, and I think it had a lot to do with me not wanting to be a further burden, but also being intentional about the way in which I was trying to figure it out, which is why older women and older people with perspective and allowing me to have the time to be mentored were really helpful for me.
Yeah, one thing that's kind of related to that topic, but a different answer is parents can have expectations of the path that's right for you, and maybe that's not always what you should follow. And I think both from the side of sometimes parents say, I want you to be a doctor, and if you do anything else, that's not what we want for you. But in my case, my parents weren't so strict about what job I took. I would say I felt I had a lot of support from them to kind of do whatever would make me happy. That being said, going into a science-based field, and both my parents are professionals. My dad, when he graduated, went straight to a PhD and is an engineer. And my mom, she's a lawyer, so went to law school. And those are very defined paths, and that's what they know, and their advice to me was, oh, so you'll graduate and you'll probably get a PhD, either right after you graduate, which was discussions had back in my fall semester of senior year, or after your first year of working, and that is clearly the next step for you. And I think I have found that while a PhD is something I'm still considering, it's not something I see as I have to do this right now. And although that's definitely the advice I get from my parents. So it can be, I think parents, they're of a different generation and can have a different idea of what it's like to enter the workforce, but that the working now, it's different. We were talking about this earlier, how people will change jobs to have like 3 or 4 jobs within 10 or 20 years, which is just not how it was for our parents' generation. So even if your parents have the best intentions, I think just staying true to yourself and knowing what you need and what you want is important.
Go ahead.
So thank you so much, all of you, for coming here. I know I can speak for everyone. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with us. And I'm just wondering, so you're all people who've launched and you have big, full lives, and you're still being part of the Brown community. How do you balance engagement with the Brown community, which may look very different from engagement with the Brown community for a mid-career person or a person with a family, because you've just left? How do you balance that with your big, full lives outside of Brown?
I just try to talk to people about like the journey. It's like people will ask me, how are you doing? And I'm like, girl, it's a struggle. Or how are you doing? Like, girl, I'm killing it right now. I'm so blessed. It's just, you just got to keep talking to people at different points so they can see how varied the experiences can be. I try and keep talking to people, not just seniors, but I'll get introduced to younger and younger students, which is nice. I don't know. I mean, they're all very lovely people. But just constantly letting them know that it's okay if they don't know what they want to do, and it's okay, if they're thinking about switching their major in the middle of, towards the end of junior year, people have done it before and they've come out fine. And just sort of trying to see where people are and quelling any insecurities they have. But I just try and be as transparent as possible with how I'm doing, so they can see that not everyone who leaves is living it, and even those people are struggling either socially or whatever. Everyone has their own hurdles that they're gonna hit, and then some people find their dream job and are very happy and won't, and those are the people that are kind of impossible to emulate. So you don't want to set too high of expectations, because then people will have all this pressure and go crazy. So I just try and keep it really real, but not scare anybody half to death. I hope I have not done that today. Oh my God.
And I think that's one of the wonderful things about the WLP community as a whole, is that staying connected as a mentor, for example, or just even coming back to Brown events, commencement, or whatever it might be. I think there's the expectation that the mentees are gaining something important from the relationship, and certainly, hopefully, they are via guidance and advice from someone who's developed a professional career. But as a mentor, and I can certainly say for myself, and I think a lot of people would echo this, it's staying connected to the Brown community on a very personal level with your mentee, and then year after year sort of renewing that connection is one of the most rewarding parts of the experience for me also. Staying connected to Brown is, for all of the reasons, from the sort of emotional and nostalgic connectivity to the practical networking aspect of it, one of the great things about the university and initiatives like this. So I think staying connected only has wonderful benefits. And unless there's anything really pressing, I think we're at time. So thank you to our wonderful panelists for sharing as much as they did.